Could a single legal bid by a jailed former prime minister reshape alliances, expose institutional fault lines, and unsettle an entire governing coalition? This question sits at the heart of Najib Razak's failed attempt to serve his prison sentence under house arrest, a saga that went far beyond one man's legal fate. What began as a post-conviction maneuver by a disgraced leader evolved into a national controversy that tested Malaysia's constitutional order, strained political partnerships, and forced the government to confront uncomfortable questions about transparency, royal authority, and the rule of law. In this video, we reveal how Najib's house arrest bid evolved into a nationwide flashpoint, why his legal challenge ultimately failed, and how the outcome deepened tensions and exposed fractures within Malaysia's political alliances. To understand why Najib's house arrest bid mattered so much, it is necessary to return to who he was, what he represented, and why his downfall remains politically explosive. Najib Razak once stood at the pinnacle of Malaysian politics. As Prime Minister from 2009 to 2018, he presided over ambitious economic plans and cultivated an image of global statesmanship. That image collapsed under the weight of the 1MDB scandal, one of the world's largest corruption cases, which came to symbolize elite impunity and institutional failure. Najib's first conviction, involving the misappropriation of 42 million ringgit from SRC International, marked a watershed moment. In July 2020, the High Court found him guilty of abuse of power, criminal breach of trust, and money laundering. After exhausting appeals, Najib began serving a 12-year prison sentence in August 2022. For many Malaysians, his imprisonment signaled that accountability, long elusive, had finally arrived. Yet Najib never accepted the verdict as the end of his story. From prison, he pursued every remaining legal and constitutional avenue. Appeals were framed as questions of fairness and due process. Public messaging emphasized loyalty, legacy, and injustice. Supporters within his party continued to rally, while opponents warned that any leniency would undermine anti-corruption efforts. The decisive turning point came not from the courts, but from the palace. In January 2024, just days before stepping down, the then Yang di-Pertuan Agong granted Najib a partial royal pardon. His prison term was halved from 12 years to 6, and his fine reduced from 210 million ringgit to 50 million ringgit. The decision immediately divided opinion. Critics saw it as an erosion of judicial authority. Supporters framed it as compassion within constitutional bounds. At first, the matter seemed settled. Najib would remain in prison, albeit for a shorter term, with the possibility of release as early as 2026. Then came the claim that changed everything. Najib's legal team asserted that the royal pardon was accompanied by a separate royal addendum, allegedly issued by the former king, allowing Najib to serve the remainder of his sentence under house arrest. According to this claim, the document existed but had been concealed by the government and the Federal Territories Pardons Board. If true, the implications were enormous. A former prime minister convicted of corruption would be moved from prison to home detention through a document unknown to key authorities. The claim immediately raised questions about transparency, constitutional process, and whether special treatment was being quietly arranged for an elite figure. In April 2024, Najib sought judicial review, asking the High Court to compel the government to confirm and enforce the alleged addendum. The court dismissed the application, ruling that the evidence presented was based on hearsay and insufficient to require a response from the authorities. That ruling should have ended the matter, Instead, it escalated. Najib appealed, and in January 2025, the Court of Appeal delivered a narrow 2-1 decision, allowing him to continue pursuing his claim. The majority ruling was based on a new development, a written declaration from the Pahang Palace confirming that an addendum had indeed been issued on January 29, 2024, permitting house arrest. The court did not rule that Najib was entitled to house arrest. It ruled only that the claim deserved to be heard fully. But politically, the damage was already done. Public attention shifted sharply from Najib to the government itself. Why had multiple authorities denied knowledge of the addendum if it existed? Why had letters from Najib's lawyers to ministers and institutions gone unanswered? And why had it taken a year for clarity to emerge? The government's responses, instead of closing the issue, deepened suspicion. The Home Minister insisted that the prison department had received only one instruction from the Pardons Board: to reduce Najib's sentence and fine. No mention of house arrest appeared in official records. The Federal Territories Minister stressed that Pardons Board deliberations were confidential and that no addendum had been discussed or seen. The Pardons Board Secretariat stated that its files contained no such document. Each denial was technically precise, but collectively unsatisfying. The controversy persisted because the central question remained unanswered. Where did the addendum sit within Malaysia's constitutional framework? For months, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim avoided direct engagement with the issue, repeatedly saying that the courts should decide. This restraint was interpreted in two ways. Supporters saw prudence and respect for royal sensitivity. Critics saw evasion. When Anwar finally addressed the matter publicly, his admission was startling. The royal addendum did exist. It had been submitted directly to the Attorney General's chambers, not to the Pardons Board or the Prime Minister. After the installation of a new king, the document was forwarded to Istana Negara. This explanation clarified one mystery while opening several others. Under Malaysia's federal constitution, the king's power of pardon is exercised on the advice of the Pardons Board. If the addendum had not been deliberated by the board, could it carry legal force? If it existed outside the board's formal process, who was responsible for disclosing it and when? The controversy now shifted from concealment to constitutionality. By December 2025, the matter returned to the High Court for a full hearing. This time, the court accepted that the addendum existed, but that acknowledgement did not help Najib. The judge ruled that the addendum was invalid because it had not been deliberated or decided upon at the Pardons Board meeting that reduced Najib's sentence. The ruling went further. It reaffirmed that the king's prerogative of mercy, while significant, must be exercised within constitutional safeguards. Decisions not taken through the Pardons Board lacked legal effect. The court also noted a practical barrier. Malaysian law does not recognize house arrest as a form of custodial sentence. Najib's bid was dismissed. He would remain in prison. Legally, the judgment was clear. Politically, the fallout was anything but. Najib's supporters, particularly within UMNO, reacted with disappointment and anger. Hundreds gathered outside the court in solidarity. Senior party figures openly expressed hope that Najib would eventually receive a full pardon. His continued influence within UMNO, despite imprisonment, was once again on display. At the same time, reactions from government allies exposed deep fractures within Malaysia's unity government. A DAP leader posted celebratory remarks praising the court's decision. What might have been routine expressions of support for judicial independence quickly turned into a political firestorm. UMNO condemned the comments as insensitive and divisive. calls were made to reconsider cooperation with allies perceived as disrespectful. PKR urged restraint, warning that public celebration risked alienating partners within the coalition. Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim stepped in to urge calm, calling on all parties to respect the judiciary and uphold its independence. The episode revealed a fundamental tension at the heart of the unity government. For reformist parties, Najib symbolized entrenched corruption and the triumph of accountability. For UMNO, he remained a former leader, a loyalist, and a political asset whose fate resonated deeply with the party base. Najib's house arrest bid thus became a proxy battle over identity, loyalty, and power within the ruling coalition. Beyond party politics, the saga raised broader concerns about governance. The year-long uncertainty surrounding the addendum eroded public confidence in institutional transparency. The Attorney General's chambers faced criticism for not clarifying the document's status earlier. The proposal to seek a gag order limiting public discussion only intensified suspicion, suggesting a government struggling to manage optics rather than provide clarity. Experts largely supported the High Court's reasoning, stressing that the decision did not diminish royal authority but affirmed constitutional process. Power, they argued, derives legitimacy from adherence to procedure. Without that, even well-intentioned acts risk destabilizing the system. Yet the damage to public trust had already been done. For many Malaysians, the episode reinforced the perception that elite cases operate in a different universe from ordinary justice. There were also long-term implications for policy. Discussions emerged about introducing legislation for home detention. While framed as criminal justice reform, the timing fueled speculation that laws might be rewritten to accommodate Najib. The government denied such intentions, but skepticism remained high. Internationally, the controversy revived uncomfortable memories of the 1MDB era. Malaysia's efforts to rebuild credibility after years of scandal risked being overshadowed by perceptions of inconsistency and political compromise. For the moment, Najib remains behind bars, but has indicated that he will appeal the rejection of his house arrest application. While his political prospects remain unclear, they have not disappeared entirely. Meanwhile, he still faces a series of grave charges linked to the alleged misappropriation of billions from 1MDB, proceedings that may once again redefine how his legacy is remembered. The failure of Najib Razak's house arrest bid did more than keep him behind bars. It exposed the fragility of political alliances, tested constitutional boundaries, and highlighted the enduring power of unresolved scandals to shape national discourse. In the end, the question is no longer just about Najib. It is about whether Malaysia's institutions can withstand pressure from history, power, and loyalty, and whether justice, once asserted, can remain consistent in the face of political consequence. And as this saga shows, even a failed bid can leave lasting marks on a nation's political landscape. But this was not the only controversy to attract criticism of Malaysia's government. Anwar Ibrahim's administration also came under fire over claims that it had compromised Malaysia's sovereignty after agreeing to a tariff arrangement with the United States. Watch this video to find out why the deal sparked such intense backlash.